episode 49 of Destination Talk. I'm John Paz.
And I am Harry, and we are coming to you once again from Stellar 19 Studios, located at 750 Route 34 in Manalapan, New Jersey. Today, we are joined by Dan Hilt. Dan, pleasure having you on. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So, people know your story from your accomplishments. Wrestled at Manalapan, starter at Rutgers, just recently, Region 4, was it Region 4? Region 4 Assistant Coach of the Year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
When you look back at that journey, what moment do you think really shaped the coach you are today?
Woo!
Loaded question.
Hot one right out of the box.
Right off the bat. I think my time at Manalapan was a special one, especially, being a public school coach now, and kind of seeing how these teams gel together or don't gel together. My Manalapan team was something special. We all came up together. We're all on the middle school team. Back in the day, we were 17-0 as a middle school team. I've had a stuffed nose for the last week. I'm not sick.
He knows so.
It's just
I guess allergies. Hanging out together at Yale Street.
Yeah. It's something in the friggin'
Something
walls
in the
there.
wall, yeah.
So don't mind my voice. But we all came up together, 17-0 at that middle school, and then all of us, went to high school together. We did everything together. We literally hung out before matches, after matches. We had this Iowa wrestling tape we would watch before every match. We would travel with it. We had that little TV back in the day, which was not easy to do back then.
Right.
And we would watch it before every match. We still talk to each other. I'm probably going to be, because I'm from, not too far from here, I'm going to go meet a couple of those guys after this. So we're still friends all these years later. And I think that was something that you don't see often, or I don't see often. You get groups of kids, of course, that hang out, and when they're all together, there could be a cohesive bunch. But how tight knit we are is something that was incredibly special to me, to all of us, and something that I feel like I don't see as often anymore.
Were you able to recognize at that moment how important that was?
I don't think so. I think it took some distance from it to realize, wow, we had something really special. I mean, in the moment, during it did feel great. We were all, having a great time. All of our parents were best friends. They hung out, joint graduation parties, all this stuff. So I think that it wasn't lost on us that this is a special bunch, but I don't think we realized, or I certainly didn't realize, that was a little bit abnormal. And then especially, when you go to college, again, you get, of course, you for the most part, everyone likes each other, but there tend to be pockets that hang out, that are tighter than others, where this was literally, we'd have 20 kids at my friend's house at all times. That was the whole team, including the non-starters. So yeah, I think it took a little distance to see that's kind of unique.
And one more follow-up to that, where you are now at Johnson High School, and then at Yale Street, do you try to instill some of that into those two programs?
Certainly. And, I know that Donnie, right? First mention of Donnie, which I assume is going to be...
We should make a tally.
First of many.
I'll do one.
Although I heard I heard my name and his a couple times, so I'll pay it back, Don. But I know that Donnie is really big, and it kind of maybe started with you, John, but would name kind of a captain of the program,
right?
Which I think John was maybe the first one to kind of, bring people together. In a way, it's a little more difficult with a club because these people are from everywhere.
Right, they're all over the place.
Yeah, they're from all over the place, but you could still accomplish, that kind of cohesive thing in the room. At events that we go to, dual tournaments or regular tournaments, even at high school states, I'm looking at like Yale Street kids from different schools warming up together on the backstage in AC or on the mats in AC, being their drill partners, even guys who might end up wrestling later. In one case, the Johnson guy, Matty Ortega, did end up wrestling in the blood round. His training partner at Yale Street, which is one of those situations that's really tough.
Right.
But so I think that there's a a bit of that at Johnson. Because I'm not in the school, I have a little bit of a different perspective or maybe influence over the kids. You know, a lot of times the head coach and the assistants are teachers at the school, and so they're a little more involved in the day-to-day. So I really only get them in the wrestling room and then, you know, at matches and tournaments and stuff like that. But they seemed like a good bunch. I absolutely advocate for strengthening that bond in whatever way. I recommend go watch. You know, there's a Rutgers is wrestling Minnesota tonight. Go to someone's house and watch that. Go do that. And to this day, that kind of blows my mind. Getting on a tangent here, but
we like tangents on the show.
Good.
We do.
Perfect. Well, I'm gonna be all over the place.
That's fine.
That's the way my brain works. But you know, I always, and I've been doing this for forever. But like, who, you know, at Yale Street, I'll say who watched the Rutgers Minnesota match or whatever last night, and you see 5 kids raise their hand, and you know, even bringing up names, I would bring up, you know, these big time names, whether it be Sativ, you know, a little more obscure for not the mainstream, or you know, Kale Sanderson, but even there are kids who have never watched Kale Sanderson wrestle. And that blows my mind. Like, if you want to be the best at this thing, watch the best.
I used to watch his ankle pick highlight video all the time.
Yeah, me too. I still do. I still watch technique videos and all that stuff and highlights of guys that I loved. I was just recently watching after the NCAA finals. I was like curious, thinking about some matches from back in my day. So I looked up like an NCAA final match from 2006. You know, and I think that kids are not taking full advantage of the ability to go watch all of the wrestling that is out there. Where back in my day, you know, there wasn't Flow Wrestling. Right. There wasn't YouTube. There wasn't the access to all these.
Well, all the networks, Big Ten Plus, you know, ESPN Plus,
it's incredible.
Covering everything.
Everything's on your fingertips nowadays.
Everything.
Yeah. Let's kind of backtrack a little bit into your career. Talk about a little bit of how your high school career was. You were 7th, 3rd, and 5th in the state tournament, correct?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that journey.
In that order, unfortunately. Yeah, I had a little abnormal. I started wrestling pretty late, 7th grade. When did you started pretty late too, right?
Yeah, I want to say like 5th grade-ish.
Okay.
Then I met Donnie when I was 6th grade, so
yeah.
That's when I really kind of got into it.
Okay, yeah. So I started in 7th grade, and my dad had wrestled back in, you know, the 70s, and he had always been pushing me to wrestle, but not in a super pushy way. My dad was the best. Thank God. I got very lucky with that. But I was always like, nah, not interested. And I was already acting. You know, I was a child actor. Yeah. I'll gloss over it real quick. But I was a child actor, and that's kind of what I was interested in. I was doing plays. I was doing commercials. I was doing all that stuff. And then one day, I was like in art class in middle school, and I became friendly with a couple of the kids in the class, and they were like, you know, we're all on the wrestling team. You should come out for wrestling. And I was like, okay. And then my dad was like, are you kidding me? That's all it took. I've been telling you. And then, you know, really quickly, I kind of picked it up. I took 2nd in the, you know, middle school league tournament. I don't remember what they call it, but, you know, the Shore League, pretty tough. I think I was just hitting headlocks. I wasn't great.
Just throwing people.
But right after that, my dad had met somebody who told him about the Edge. And so I started going to the Edge right after that season, my 7th grade, you know, that off season. And within my freshman year, I didn't even start varsity. I was 93 pounds. Kid in front of me was very good, you know, state qualifier out of Region 6 back in the day, only top 3, Region 6, really tough. So I didn't even start varsity and then placed the next 3 years. So within 3 years of starting wrestling, I placed in the high school states. So I guess that's the origin story of.
Were you hitting your single wrist then?
Single wrist came pretty quickly. You know, that was the thing that Ernie was teaching at the Edge, and I was doing it a little bit different back then, right? You and I, I'm sure, have discussed this at length, but the Blair ride style of getting your knees out to the side, I don't think I was doing right away. It was more, you know, single wrist, butt drag, put it on the back, primarily. But yeah, I was,
It was
ripping people's
going.
arms
Yeah,
off
yeah.
with that for sure.
We all love to compare different eras. I mean, it creates great conversation.
Yeah.
I think so. When you look at what wrestling was like for you at Manalapan, to where you see it as a coach at Johnson,
Yeah.
I don't know if there is a comparison, but what parallels or what differences do you see?
Well, again, Manalapan was unique in the sense that everyone was really excited about it. Everybody wanted to be surrounded and kind of, fully immersed in wrestling, especially, of course, during the season. And nowadays, at a public school, it seems you'll get like 5, 6 to maybe 10 kids that are that invested, and everyone else is kind of just there for the season, which is okay, right? We as advocates for this sport, we want involvement in it that doesn't necessarily hinge on you're all in or nothing, right? We all have friends who wrestled and weren't, world beaters or wanted to had goals to wrestle in college or be world champions or whatever. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I do see a lot of that, which is a handful of guys who are 100% invested versus majority not. And I think that nowadays it's really hard to have any success in wrestling if you are not, at the very least, going and getting extra work at a club. Even if you're not 100% year round, not 100% committed, but you're getting in practices every once a week or every couple weeks at least. So the guys that don't do that, they just don't have a chance anymore.
Do you think that's because they're playing other sports as well? I mean,
absolutely.
Like in the case of John, I mean, I'm very familiar with Johnson in the fact that I've trained their football team for the last couple of summers. And I know it's a smaller school. So one of your guys on your team, unfortunately, didn't compete this year, John Brown. So John's a great guy.
Yeah.
I know football's his main sport.
Yep.
But he's a football player. He wrestled, and I believe he just started spring track.
Yeah.
So like when you have good athletes like Jack Kalikas, who's also at your school, football, ice hockey, lacrosse, but he's going to Vermont to play lacrosse.
Yeah.
So do you think that plays into it?
I think absolutely it does. And I think that's a great thing. I think, again, back to those guys that maybe aren't like let's say John Brown, who I think he's playing football in college, right?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah. So that's awesome. We want that guy on the wrestling team. I don't care if you're not, planning on competing.
But he's a great teammate because he was at every one of those practices, every one of those meets. I know that.
Sitting in the sling on the
court, and I know that
because
we talked about that. He was there, and that's something you can't teach also to someone.
100%. And there was a couple guys at Johnson this year, and even I was at GL for 10 years, and same thing. We had guys that were out for probably the season or the foreseeable future, would be sitting right on the side. We had one guy who was I think he was getting knee surgery a couple years ago, and he'd be sitting. I'd look over, and he'd be sitting in the chair in the corner, like shadow hand fighting in the chair with a friggin' knee brace on. And yeah, that's amazing. You love that. And so I think that's one of those things is like wrestling, regardless of your commitment level or your ultimate goals, there's something about it that just grabs kids, right? They love it. And I'll take that any day, over I want only guys who are this, that, you know what I mean? Like I want everyone involved who wants to be involved. That's all I care about. I say it all the time as a coach. I don't care about the wins and losses. Yes, we all want to win. We want to be great. But I care about your effort and attitude. And, I see from the guys that I've gotten to coach that is, one of the best attributes to a lot of the people that have come and gone through GL, ALJ, Yale Street.
Mm-hmm. So kind of transitioning back into your career again, college, getting recruited, what your recruiting process was like, how you got to Rutgers, how you met Donnie, how you met Shane, all those guys. Kind of get into that story a little bit as well.
So yeah, after I took third my junior year and started going to Fargo, I went to Fargo I think sophomore year too a bunch of times. So yeah, then they start kind of come knocking, especially in New Jersey when you take top 3 in Jersey or even place, colleges are starting to look at you, and I had. Like a lot of the Ivies were coming at me, and I had to be like, guys, I'm not getting into Princeton. I'm sorry.
I said that too. Like, I'm not Ivy material. I can't do that.
I'd love to, but the Naval Academy, and I was like, I don't think that's for me. And actually, I was pretty set on going to Drexel. I was getting recruited by Drexel. They had a really good group of guys in there at the time. I think they had an All-American already. And they had some great coaches. Joe Melchiori, if you remember, you're too young.
I'm really young.
You should go look him up, man. Iowa.
Yeah.
I think he was Iowa. National finalist or national champ. But he was on the staff, and it was in Philly, and they had this really great film program. So I was interested in pursuing, obviously those avenues of staying in the acting world and or the film, production world. So I was set on going there, but they wanted me to commit like right away. And I was kind of being like, well, let me keep my options open. I went on a couple recruiting trips. I was like, I like it. And then when I did not win it, I was, projected to win the States my senior year. Got upset, took 5th. Their scholarship offer cut in half. And I was like, well, that school is really expensive. I can't do that. So, and Sachi at the time had been recruiting me already. And I just kept being like, it was just kind of a Jersey thing where I was like, I don't want to go to Rutgers. Everyone goes to Rutgers. All the kids from my town are going to be there and stuff like that. And they were still there, offering me some money. And then I saw like the recruiting class coming in and was a lot of... That's one thing about Rutgers. Even back then, before Goodale, before kind of the more national success, they did recruit some really great Jersey wrestlers to get over there. Some great PA kids would be on that team. And I ended up going over there and, again, met some of my best friends to this day are who are from Rutgers, Donnie. And then I get there and I hear about Donnie DeFilippis. And... of course, I knew who he was growing up. I heard the name, had seen his state finals, his interview after he won the states. If you guys haven't seen that, go look it up. It's incredible. He's gonna kill me for saying that, but
we'll put it.
I've been doing it for 20 years. We'll put a link. But actually, the first thing Donnie ever said to me, we had this like wrestling kind of meet and greet party at somebody's house in like maybe September or October, and I come up with my buddy, and Donnie approaches me and goes, "You Dan Hilt?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I lost a lot of money on you." And he walks away because I guess he had picked me to win states. That was my first interaction with Donnie. And then right after that, man, we were fast friends. We were drilling partners. I was 25, he was 41, and his funkiness really helped. He likes to say that he taught me the lobster. I was hopping out of the pocket before that, but he definitely helped me with it. Got me better at it, got me more comfortable there. And I was also a crab ride guy, so I was kind of on both sides of that. And it drove me nuts because I couldn't stay on top of Donnie because his damn shoulders and he'd be out. And, but yeah, we became fast friends. He kind of took me under his wing, and he would help me cut weight, when I was struggling to make 25, and he was having a good cut to 41. We were together all the time, and the rest is history. We've been together since.
How important was that for you? Because when you're at the top of the high school level, any sport, but in this case wrestling, now you go over to a school like Rutgers, long before they were in the Big Ten, but still a very good conference for wrestling. It's different. So that competition level is very different.
Oh yeah.
So how important was it to have a guy like Donnie take you under his wing, teach you the ropes, so to speak? So talk to that, and then what was that like? Because I think we have a lot of athletes and families that watch and listen to this, but they don't understand that level of jump you have to take. Because you could be at the top of the high school level, you could be the number one high school player in your sport, but the moment you go to college, very rare you're number one.
Oh yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I can vividly remember even my first college match and the difference in the 3-minute first period, where I remember we got into like, maybe like a minute scramble on the edge, good back and forth, out of bounds, no score. And in my head, I was like, well, that must be the end of the period. And I look back and there's like 2 minutes.
You're like, oh no.
And I was like, oh boy. Okay, this is definitely different. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing meeting someone like Donnie, and it's an important thing in general, I think, for that next level of competition, is surrounding yourself with people like Donnie who have high goals, right? Like Donnie wanted to be a national champion. Donnie wanted to, at the very least, be an All-American, which, is a very tough thing to do. John, you might know that. But being around somebody who holds themselves to a higher standard, who sets lofty goals, is really important, especially when you get to college and like you say, you go from kind of being a big fish in a small pond to just another tough wrestler in a group of tough wrestlers. And so I think having him helped me stay motivated, stay hungry, because it could be, college wrestling can be, when you're in high school, or at least this is my experience, is like, it was nothing but fun. I loved every second of it. It's all I wanted to do. And then you get to college and it just starts to feel a little more like a job. Like, I'm here for this reason. I'm being given money to do this thing. There's expectations put on you. And that's sometimes a hard thing, to deal with.
And I bring that up too because with the NCAA's just wrapping up, you look at a kid like Jax Forrest, who wasn't all that long ago just in high school.
Crazy.
And like a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And then he steps onto the big stage and wins a national championship. And I think 17, 18 years old. I'm not sure of his actual age, but I think back to when you had your first match at the NCAA. You wrestled a guy that was a 50-year senior, was 25 years old. You were at 17, 18 yourself.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy. But like when you see what John did his freshman year, what a kid like Jax Forrest just did at Oklahoma State, if I'm not mistaken, it speaks volumes to what those individuals are as people.
Yeah.
Because it's very few who can make that jump.
Absolutely. It's crazy. And, we're seeing it more and more and more, right? Vega did the same thing.
Right.
I mean, I think there were 4 true freshmen.
Yeah.
Right.
You were a true freshman when you took 4th.
Yep.
And you were a second away from being in the finals that year as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, I know.
That one still burns me.
But I think that is a product of a few things. But again, I think it goes back to like, look who is surrounding Jax Forrest. Right? Look who he has to look up to model himself after, who can help him with those lofty goals that he has, guys. And again, the difference I think too is in the mindset nowadays is I came into college being like, let me survive this first year. Let me get integrated into this, figure myself out, get my footing. Where like, I have no doubt, like Jax Forrest, those guys are coming into college being like, I'm going to be a national champ. That's the mindset. Where does that come from? I'm sure that comes from them, whoever they were surrounded with in high school. Like you say, he was just in high school, literally wrestled in high school this same season.
Right.
Which is absolutely crazy, which maybe is the first time that's ever happened.
I think it is. I think so. I read something about that.
Yeah. So I'm sure he's surrounded by some incredible people in his high school. But you need to, I imagine if you have David Taylor in your corner, that things are going to, I don't want to say go your way, but you're set up for success.
Well, and I think also too, if you take it a step back, you look at where David Taylor came from. He comes out of the Penn State room, and like it or not, everyone wants to throw dirt on the top dog because they want to see them get knocked off. But there's a reason why those guys are competing at the level they are.
Absolutely.
Win or lose.
Yeah.
You talk about that room. Talk about a room. I can only imagine what's rolling through that room every day with them.
Yeah. I mean, again, like look at the people who are in that room, who you're surrounding yourself with. You have age level world champions left and right, and again, people with high goals, lofty goals. They are not there to be fifth in the country. They're not happy with that. They're there to win a national title, win a world title, an Olympic title, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, and I think like you're starting to see the kind of descendants of Kale, right, that are starting to pop around, right? David Taylor's the obvious one, and I'm sure that's only going to keep expanding as time goes. And it's one of the things, I think a lot about the club scene in New Jersey, where like I put the Cale Sanderson of the club scene, in my opinion, is Ernie Monaco, right? I came from Edge. A lot of my foundation is stuff I learned at Edge. And of course, I've, found my own things that I like to do and tweaked other things that I do and, all that stuff that happens. But like, if you look at the landscape of the club scene, you could really draw a direct line of all these different coaches who started clubs right back to Ernie, right? And now we're seeing that. I think you're going to start seeing that from Cale, the success that he's brought David Taylor, right? And people are going to start going and taking over other programs. And
I'd have to imagine that that's good for the sport and healthy to Penn State has certainly raised the bar.
Yeah.
And now Oklahoma State's trying to close that gap. Next year, Virginia Tech, I think, gets Bo Bassett on their roster.
Yep.
And, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of lofty expectations on him personally and the team. I can only see that being good for the sport.
Absolutely.
On a personal level.
It's going to drive competition.
Because it's going to drive people. It's going to force people to work harder, coaches to coach harder. And I think it'll make for a better viewing attraction.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Yeah, I mean, VTech has already had a really good team this year. And look at that coaching staff, right? Zach Tonelli. I think there's like 5 former head coaches on
one staff,
that one staff. Yeah.
And you have familiarity with them because you wrestled against them twice.
Yeah.
So you know what that program's all about.
Kind of diving into your acting career now, transitioning. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So like I was saying before, I kind of got into it when I was a kid. I had seen a Broadway show, and I was obsessed. I was just obsessed, being like, I don't know what this is, but I like it, and I want to do that. And I was like a crazy younger sibling, so probably seeking some attention. But I was always running around, putting on costumes. For a period of time, I was obsessed with G.I. Joe. All I did was dress as G.I. Joe, right? So I just kind of had that personality, I think, when I was a kid. And then my neighbor just happened to be a talent manager and was interested in my brother. Blonde hair, blue eyes, looks nothing like me. Much better looking. He'll never see this, so I could say that. But I went along for his like audition. And I think I was, I don't remember. I think I was just being crazy and, outgoing. And she was like, I like you too. And my brother wasn't interested in it anyway. So I just started kind of going on auditions, and it took a little while, but I booked a Kmart commercial, Toy Mania. And
Kmart's don't exist anymore, just so you know.
Yeah. Do you know what a Kmart is, John?
No,
it was pre-Walmart.
Oh my
I know Walmart.
Yeah, Kmart was pre-Walmart.
I can't. It didn't even occur to me that you don't know what a Kmart is.
I know Walmart is. I was like, I guess that's Walmart, right?
Kmart was what Walmart ultimately turned into.
Right. So there was this thing called Kmart, and they had Toy Mania. Yeah, so I did that, and then I just started booking more and more commercials. You mentioned before we started Sunny Delight. That was kind of the big one. There's a lot of people in the wrestling community who I came up with that still to this day call me Sunny. So the story behind that is when I started going to the Edge, I was on a national Sunny Delight commercial. And, I don't know if this is exactly what happened or if like it's years of stories and building it up, but I'm pretty sure that like Ernie didn't know my name yet. And so he just started calling me Sunny. And that stuck. Like I entered tournaments as Sonny Hilt.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, people my dad called me Sonny. Everybody only called me Sonny. There's a handful of guys. Tonelli calls me Sonny. You know, there's a bunch of guys that are still from those early days that only refer to me as Sonny. So yeah, doing all that. I did, you know, before anyone knew what it was, I didn't know what it was when I got it, but season 1 of Sopranos I was on before it was famous. So I was like, yeah, I got a TV show. I don't know, some show. And then it turned out to be Sopranos. So that's pretty cool to look back on. I was on the Law and Order back in the day, Jerry Orbach. I'm not going to even look at him because he doesn't know who that is.
I know who that
He'll
is.
know.
Yeah.
He knows everybody.
I know. Well, I used to watch that show. It was very good back then.
Yeah, the good old days. So yeah, I started jumping in kind of full force with that, and then the story I told before, got into wrestling, but always knew that I wanted to keep doing acting, you know, and all these years later, I'm still doing both. Those are the two things that I do. And
Any comparisons?
It's cool. You know, it's funny because on its face, it looks like they're very different things, but the only wrestlers know that feeling of like the moments before going out for a match or, you know, on the big stage in a tournament, whatever. Those butterflies that you get, both good and bad, the nerves that you're dealing with, when you're doing a play, it's the exact same feeling for me because I'm about to walk out there and, you know, there's always a moment to this day if I'm like, right before I go out, I'm like, why do I do this? Why am I doing this to myself? Why would I ever want to do that? And then you go out and it's like, you're right in it. And I've had those thoughts in before a wrestling match being like, oh my God, you know, gotta wrestle this big match. I'm nervous. And then once you shake hands and the whistle blows, all that's gone and you're going. So there's a comparison, I think, in that aspect.
And I can see too, because one of the things that I learned when I first met John and started working with him was that wrestling's an individual team sport.
Yeah.
So it's you versus your opponent.
I was just about to say this.
The lights are on. That's all eyes are on you. And I would imagine, having been to many Broadway shows myself, when you walk out onto that stage, it's you, your lines, and then the audience is watching you. So, you know, I can see drawing a line right across to where those two come together.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, theater, TV, film, whatever it is that you're doing, it's still a collaborative thing, right? Because it's at its core this. Talking, listening, reacting normally, but you know, there's a camera in your face this far away from you and 100 people and a sound guy and, you know, so you have to kind of be present in this while also being conscious of all of this. And so, yeah, I think that when you're wrestling, there's a lot of things going through your mind, right? The people who are there watching you, supporting you, your parents, your coaches who are, you know, all that stuff goes into it. So it's a similar thing in that way, right? A collaborative but individual experience.
Right.
Super unique.
Right.
On
You know,
both fronts.
win your match, help your team, hit your line, the show continues.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Do your job.
Right.
You know, that one of the old adages is like, know your lines, be on time, be nice, right? Like, get the job done and get out of there, right?
Absolutely.
Especially if you're not the star of the show, which I rarely have been, right? I'm there to do my job and be out.
Right.
So, talking about acting and wrestling, do you think, like, when you were competing, finding that balance, how important is balance to kids who are wrestling today from an athletic perspective and then, you know, stuff off the mat as well?
I think that's a huge thing. And I'm not sure if I was the best at that, actually, when I look back at my college career specifically, because that's when, like I was saying, you know, when it starts becoming a job, wrestling specifically, and there's just more to it, it's hard to stay 100% focused on those things.
Yeah.
And as you're getting older, right? Now you're hitting your 20s maybe. And I was in the acting at Rutgers. I was in the acting program while also being on a wrestling scholarship. So those are two things that are not very well meshed together because both of them require a ton of sacrifice and focus and time commitment.
How did you manage that?
So I managed it the best I could, but I will say that especially as I started getting, to my junior, senior year, they would, my focus would be split, and that wasn't good for my wrestling career. But on the other side of the coin, I think that it's great to have other interests, right? We're talking about multiple sport athletes. It's good to have a life out, to remember that this is just a sport. It's a game is kind of what I like to say. We're playing a game. It's a physical, it's the toughest physical game there is, but it's a game. And I think that's what Penn State does so well is they are all reminded of that there's something,
we were just talking about that not that long ago.
Yeah. So I think that the fact that I had this other interest was good for me, more than it was bad for me. And, I always say like, we're all not one thing, right? I was never just Dan Hilt, the wrestler. I was, the actor or
Sonny.
Sonny.
Sorry.
Sonny. Yeah.
So want to show a little love to both of the programs that you're affiliated with. Can you talk a little bit about the ALJ Wrestling Room and Yale Street Wrestling Club?
Yeah, sure. ALJ, I have to give, and I have to throw in GL as well because I was there for 10 years with Ricky Ortega, which is who I think is the one that makes all that work, right? In the same sense that I'll talk about Donnie, who is the one that makes Yale Street work. Again, it's really tough in a public school, a small public school, to keep the numbers, to keep the interest, to keep the level high. That's a really, really tough thing to do. And what I discovered was Ricky was really good at making sure that the feeder program, the middle school, the rec, whatever, was taken care of, that those kids were the numbers were growing and those kids were invested and those kids were into it. And there's a guy named Bill Faxon, right?
Yep.
Who was incredible, instrumental, still is in the Berkeley Heights youth program. If you don't have that, you will not be a good high school team. You need that feeder program. So both those GL and ALJ, I credit a lot of that to Ricky Ortega, And this was only my first year at ALJ, but Ricky and I go way back. We coached together for 10 years. So I know that, I forget how many kids we have, 40, 50 kids on the team, which I don't think was the case very recently.
Right. Well, it also helps, too, and I never can, because I know they were twin brothers, but Belverio, who wrestled at Buffalo this past year. So, it's very helpful to have a kid come out of that program and go to a Division I wrestling school and compete. And it shows the kids behind them, hey, there's an opportunity for me to do this also.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a good segue. Zach is a great segue into Yale Street because what he did, that kid started wrestling freshman year. He was, I think his freshman year record was like 14-14 or something to that effect. And then took 6th in the state his senior year.
Right.
And he joined Yale Street Wrestling Club, decided he wanted to be good. We always say, like, it's not a secret. There's a direct correlation to success in wrestling. And that's how much time and effort you put into it.
Right.
And he joined Yale Street. He started working with Coach Pete, who we were saying before. We've got to have him on.
Yeah.
He's a great wrestling mind. And he and Zach he was the closest thing that we had seen, I think, the coaches, since John Paz.
Right.
Which is that complete dedication and doing everything the right way to set yourself up for success. And
another football player, if I'm not mistaken, too. He played football also.
Did he? Zach?
I can either him. I know his
tiny.
I know his brother did.
Okay.
I know his brother did.
Yeah,
but
his brother was a little bigger than him.
I could be off on that, but for some reason I remember he played football also.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not totally sure, but yeah. And so back to the initial question is Donnie is the heart and soul of the Yale Street Wrestling Club. Like I always say to this day, you know, him and I kind of started it together, but there would be no Yale Street Wrestling Club if it was just me running it. I would be, number one, run over by everybody. You know, I'd be like, don't worry, pay me next time. You know, we would make zero money. We'd have the lights would not be on in the building.
Good cop, bad cop.
Exactly, because Donnie, anyone that knows Donnie, as you guys know, Donnie is not afraid to speak his mind.
No, he's not.
He's not afraid of a tense situation, and so he's really good at being like that guy. The let's call it bad cop, although I'll just say honest cop, right? And then me being like, hey, great job, man. Don't worry about it. It's all good, you know. So we work well together like that, and also we've always said that. Our individual styles ended up working really well together. He was a little more funky. He was a little more with his slick stuff, ducks and all that. I was a little more kind of baseline, conventional technique, and we've done a really good job of kind of bridging the gap. We talk, this whole thing, we could just keep pointing to you, right? Eventually, you started doing the single wrist. This is a funny thing with me and John, because single wrist, we talked about it before, Blair Ride, whatever. I've been trying to get John to do that forever. And then he gets to college. The next thing you know, he's riding everyone out with a freaking single wrist. And I'm like, oh, imagine that. And then he would come home and be like, hey, look at what Donnie Pritzloff showed me. But yeah, I've been showing you that for 4 years, John.
Yeah, that's a funny story.
Sometimes you need to hear it from someone else before you do it. But you never forget where you hear it first.
Donnie Pritzloff tells you something, you listen. I'm not ashamed to take the back seat to that.
Absolutely.
So you have Donnie, yourself, you guys bring in Shane Mallory.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
I met Shane. It's maybe my junior or senior year of college. Donnie had graduated. It's funny because we were only there for 1 year together, and then about a half year because he was trying to get a medical red shirt. So he was still kind of around and coming to the practices, at least for the first half of the season. Anyway, I guess had started coaching at New Prov, where he went, and he found Shane Mallory, and by that time, I guess Shane was pretty good. He discovered him, I think, at the pool. Right?
Yep.
That's where
I heard that story.
Did he say that?
He said this.
Either him or Shane shared that same story.
Yeah. So he started bringing Shane around to Rutgers for either workouts or just kind of hangouts. And yeah, so that's where I met him, and then he's a year younger or 2 years younger, so he went to ESU. So then we started seeing him, at tournaments or when we wrestled against ESU. Started seeing Shane, and another one that's just kind of now has just been in my life ever since, which is great. And Shane, as you know, is a fantastic coach and a great wrestling mind and a great dude.
Oh yeah, him and I spent a lot of time together.
Yeah.
Then you brought in Pete.
Yep. So another one, New Prov kid, who Donnie coached at. Did you guys all get the brief on Grandma's Basement?
I don't think Harry knows
I don't
that.
think I know that story. I don't think it did. If it did, I don't remember.
Okay. So Donnie's an original Yale Street Wrestling Club, if you will, was called Grandma's Basement.
I definitely did not hear this.
Was like,
I know this story. You don't know
I think
this story.
the late 90s to all through the 2000s, Donnie had a mat in his grandmother's basement, and he was coaching kids down there. And I mean, the amount of people that I run into who are my age or older that are like, oh yeah, Grandma's Basement, man, that was the place. So it's kind of this legendary little underground spot. But I believe Pete was a Grandma's Basement guy. Moved here from Ohio, which is funny. People,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there you go. Pete was from Ohio. I think only started wrestling. Well, only wrestled there a year or two until he moved to New Prov. And Donnie, Pete, and I tell this story, laugh about this a lot. And I don't know if Pete will appreciate this, but here I am until you get here, Pete. You can tell your side of it. But for years, Donnie would go to me. I got this kid, Pete Teresa, at the high school. He would kick your butt, right? He just really trying to fire me up and instigate. And I'd be like, yeah. Did it for years. And then Pete goes to Duke. And 1 year, we kind of converged. It all kind of came together where we were at the same wrestling practice. And we rolled a little bit. And I won. Pete will tell you, and it's true, I was like 20 years old or 19 years old, freshman year of college. Yes, very true.
A little bigger than him.
This all comes from Donnie starting crap and trying to get me fired up. So there was like years brewing of me being like, I'm going to beat this kid's butt. But yeah, I mean, Pete is just the best. Him and I have gotten really close over the last few years, especially traveling. Him and I are carpooling to all the events that we go to. We end up being, bunk mates in the hotel at the events that we're staying at. And he's, I really liken him to Ernie because, I don't know how much you guys know but Ernie's style was like, there'd be practices at the edge where you're just listening to Ernie talk for an hour and you would just soak up every second of it. It was incredible. And nowadays, I don't know if that's still his way because I feel like attention spans and there's all this stuff. We had parents in the early days of Yale Street being like, yeah, we were at Edge and we had to leave there. That guy talks too much. And I was like, well, how about you just listen to what he's saying? But Pete is that. Pete is a mind, is a philosopher. And you've seen him coach, right?
Yep.
He's really good at breaking down all of this stuff and why we do this and how this affects this and that. And an incredible, amazing addition to this coaching staff.
Yeah.
That I don't think we would be the same without.
So when you look at wrestling and reflecting on it, what life lessons does the sport teach those who compete in it that other sports don't?
Well, I really think, I always come back to, I think there are many, but I always come back to the fact that you might do everything right and it doesn't work out for you. And what I always like to say to the kids is like, my goal was to be a state champ, and it's the only thing I dreamt about, lived for, wanted, and I wasn't. Do I look at all of that as wasted time because I didn't achieve that goal? Absolutely not. It was all worth it, and it all made me who I am today, et cetera, right? So I think like the main thing that I try to instill or that I took from wrestling is like, yeah, life is tough, right? This sport, in a smaller way to describe it, this sport is really tough. You could do all the right things and still not reach your, ultimate goals. Life is the same way, right? Like, especially as I get older, things aren't going by my way, and it's really easy to be like, oh, that's unfair. That's that, blah, 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 blah. That person's out. And at the end of the day, no, man, it's just, that's the way it is. Am I going to sit here and sulk about it? Yes, I'll take 5 minutes to do that, but then I'm going to get back up and I'm going to keep doing whatever I have to do to keep going and reach that goal or, find a new path, whatever. And I don't think there's anything like wrestling to teach you that because there's just so much adversity that you face as a wrestler, injuries, the weight cut, all the things that we've already talked about, the expectations and the coming short of reaching goals. It's all a correlation to what happens in life. It's very rarely that you just meet someone that's like, life has been great. Yep. Right. Everything's cool. No big deal.
Maybe for the guy that keeps winning.
Hey, yeah.
I listening to you say that, I can't help but think of just what, like Mikey Caliendo from Iowa, who just could not get over that hump to beat a Messenbrink. And, I know there was a viral clip. He was,
where he didn't shake his hand.
People can debate what Messenbrink was up to with the handshakes and everything, but he didn't want to shake his hand because, I get it. You lost to him, I think, 2 years in a row.
9 times.
But definitely in the national finals, 2 years in a row. Like, I think he has every right to just stand. He's not going to get that opportunity again to wrestle for an NCAA championship. And, I know there were some people going back and forth, but I could understand.
Totally. And that's the thing about wrestling too, is right. Like somebody's going to be heartbroken.
Right.
There's only one person who wins.
Right. Out of the 33, only one's going to get their hand raised.
One person. Yeah. Yeah. And Donnie and I talk about this all the time. The state tournament, realistically, there's only 14 kids that leave that place
happy.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to be, like I said, and this is the other really cool thing I think about wrestling is my guess is in, and John, you're recently out of college, so you could probably speak to this as well, but like my guess is in a year, 2 years from now, Caliendo and Messenbrink are going to cross paths and they're going to be buds. Right? Like, it's okay to have that competitive edge, to be upset, not want to shake that guy's hand in that moment, right? It's my version, I think, of like being like, all right, I'm going to sulk for 5 minutes. Or, you know, take a day to feel sorry for myself. And then I'm going to get over it and move on. But it's really incredible. I think wrestling, more than any sport, maybe I'm not sure about that because this is the sport I did, you know, for the most at the highest level. But I think it bonds people. I know that it bonds people more than all wrestlers know that. But like the amount of people who were former competitors, former enemies that are now working together as coaches together or drilling together, you know, when they're warming up at their big events. You know, I look at like Saheed Valencia is in the Okie State room, right?
Yeah.
Saheed and David Taylor were not buddies, right? And now David Taylor's essentially his coach. Like that happens more and more in this sport. And so I don't doubt, I would bet that a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, Caliendo and Messenbrink are going to be drilling together, training together, whatever the case may be. And that's a unique, really great thing I think about this sport because we all know what the other one's going through.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else that in the Dan Hilt life that we need to know?
Anything else in the Dan Hilt life? I mean, I don't think I have.
Well, I'll throw one at you. You know, we like to leave every podcast with a message to the athletes and the families that are listening to us. So, what message would you convey to those kids who are aspiring to one day be great? What advice can you leave them with?
You know, I think kind of what I was saying before is what I'll stick with is like, it's worth it, right? Like just that, it's worth it, period. Meaning, if this is something that you want to do, that you want to pursue, that you want to be great at, don't worry about the obstacles that are in your way, because there's a ton, and go out there and pursue it. Work your butt off. Do everything that you can to be great if that's what you want. And whatever the result is, it's worth it. It's absolutely, you will never be sorry for working your butt off and becoming a better person, even if it doesn't work out for you in the end.
Right.
And I don't think anything teaches you that quite like wrestling. And so if this is a sport that, you know, for the athletes out there and the parents, if this is something that you guys want to get into it. You will not be sorry.
Yeah.
I've learned to come to enjoy the sport greatly over the last 6 years. It was not something on my radar until I met John. And, you know, it was a little weird this year because he didn't compete.
Yeah.
But I was locked into the NCAAs and watched all 3 days of them and found myself on the edge of my seat, you know, just watching these young men compete.
It's incredible. It's funny. It's something I think about all the time is like, again, maybe when I'm having like a bad day or something's not going well, I literally think, I'm like, well, there's a great match on tonight that I could go watch. Or, you know, I think like however long I live, there's going to be a wrestling season where I could go watch great wrestling.
Right.
That literally crosses my mind. That's how much I love this sport and watching this sport and being involved in this sport is just such a gift. It's never something that when I was young, when I was competing, I never thought I was going to be a coach. I never thought that I would have the perspective of this side of things. And I'm so glad that things worked out this way, that I get to be on this side of things, because it's truly, it's everything that being a competitive wrestler was and more, right? And that's actually something I'd be interested, actually, John, your opinion now that because you're so fresh out, but you also have this coaching perspective now. Is like when you take that step back and you become a coach and now everything is kind of flipped and you're on the other side of it, it's pretty incredible, I think, the perspective that you get.
Yeah.
And the whole different experience that you get of this sport. There's two experiences.
Right.
Well, there's probably more than that, right? The parents, whatever. But like the competitor and the coach, two different experiences that blend and also have their differences. And I'm glad now been a long time a part of both, and you're kind of newly a part of that second half.
Yeah, I'd definitely say from like I learned more now as a kind of into the coaching world. I mean, I learned a lot when I was, competing, but I learned more about the little things and those perspective on the little things from a coaching perspective now.
Yeah. And I used to say this to you when you were still competing. He was coming kind of over the summers and doing classes and stuff, and I used to ask you like, it makes you think more about that technique and how I do that technique and why I do that technique. Right? It starts getting the brain thinking in a different way.
Right.
And
because you have to explain to somebody from what you're doing. Because like when I first started coaching, like I could do the move, but like I didn't know how to explain
Here's our crotch.
Yeah, I didn't know how to
All right,
explain the
and
little
two.
things.
Right.
Yeah, and I think over time, like I did a private with Spitzer the other day, and like we were just getting into like the nitty gritty. I was explaining it's all a puzzle. You have the setup, you have where your feet are, and it's all these little puzzle pieces together make the move, and that's chain wrestling. So.
And that's something you've never thought about.
No, and when I was wrestling, I'm like, oh, I never thought of that.
Right.
Well, and here's the funny thing. So hearing him say that just now warms my heart because he did hear that before. He heard it from me when I was training him in his footwork
Now you
stuff.
know how I feel.
Exactly right.
Well, I take little bits and pieces from everybody,
but
and then
that's
I
what
create...
you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
that's
correct.
exactly. Listen, I've shared many times. I love reading. If I tried to implement every single thing I read in a book, I would be still on book number 1.
Yeah.
Because I would need infinite lifetimes to do every single thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you look for that nugget or two that you can incorporate, and sometimes you have to replace old with new because that's just the way life goes.
Yeah.
And I will say, you never know when it's going to click. Like
100%.
when the single wrist is going to click, when the understanding of little puzzle pieces together is going to click. And when you look at different perspectives, that's when they click.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Well, Dan, your passion to the sport certainly comes through your words, and we thank you so much for being a part of our journey here at Destination Talk. And, well, my friend, we are one episode away from a big number.
Episode 50.
That is a wrap on episode 49 of Destination Talk with Paz and Harry. The big one's next, so we don't know what we have in store just yet. We'll be talking about that, but stay tuned. We hope you're going to be with us on that journey until we meet again.
Cut it.
Mile 21 Media.